Hey cats, what's happening? It's another rainy day. It's windy, it's cool, cold, and I looked at the weather app and the radar shows like intermittent showers coming in and out throughout the day. I've been working on my yard a little bit in between. I've done some edging on my beds. I did some edging around the house using my Ryobi battery powered edger. It works really well, and I was hoping that I could continue on that today, and maybe I will if the rain holds off. But until then, I'm going to work in the man cave here. I've always said I'm not much of a mechanic, and I guess I cut myself short because over the years I've done a lot of mechanical work. I'm just not a professional at it. I don't always do the best job. Sometimes I cut corners. I know when you do mechanical stuff, like when you're getting into the motor like this, you have to kind of keep that area sterile. You don't want any dirt or grime getting in there, the metal shavings or things like that can eventually tear up the motor. So I've been trying to stay diligent with that on this bike project, and I'm enjoying it too. But as far as mechanics go, if you're a biker, if you do any riding at all, do you have mechanical skills? I'm sure every one of us has been out on the road and all of a sudden the bike just dies. And it's like, what? I mean, yeah, my Harley, it's done the same thing. I've been out riding and all of a sudden it just, what's going on? And although I do have some mechanical skills, one of my fails is electronic things. So, if something shorts out in the system, which is probably the first most common thing that's going to happen, it's like, oh boy, now where do I start? And I guess the first thing I do is jiggle wires because I'm thinking, well, maybe there's just a shorted wire somewhere. The last issue I had that worked okay though, because the short was actually in my ignition switch, and I found by jiggling it, that was where the short was. So I had to replace the ignition switch, which wasn't a very difficult task at all. Sometimes you look at those things and you go, how the heck would I ever replace that thing? I don't even see any screws here or anything. Well, there's a way to do it, and it's all not that difficult once you learn how to do it. And thank goodness for the internet nowadays, because just like these YouTube videos, you can find how to do anything on there now. I mean, I found this guy that works on this exact bike, and I've been watching his videos. Thanks, Dale. It's been a great help because he shows step by step how to do things, and he's very intricate and good with it too. So you do have to have some mechanical skills. Now, I know, you look at Scooter Tramp Scotty, and he'll take his whole, side cover off or his primary cover off and make roadside repairs with the tools that he has. I'd be afraid to try that. I mean, I'm sure that I could if I had to, but I guess when you're in a situation like he's in, when he's out on the road all the time, he has no home to speak of, you got one choice. You got to fix it the best you can. I've been known to fix things with some baling wire and a pair of pliers. Hey, if it works, if that'll get you to the next stop, then that's what you got to do. So I'd say it's probably best to have some mechanical skills. I mean, I know how to check for spark, and I know how to check for fuel to make sure it's getting fuel. And if it's got spark and it's got fuel, then it's something electronic. That maybe in your ignition or something that's not catching. But I'm not real educated on electronics. or electricity, as far as that goes. I mean, I've done some basic wiring, but I'm not good at it. My son, he's good at it. He knows his business. He's been schooled on that. So whenever I have an electrical issue, I just get a hold of him, and he either helps me out with it or walks me through it. I even have one of those little voltmeter things, that I bought. And I don't think I've ever used it but one time, because I really don't understand how to use it in a given situation. I'm sure it's pretty simple. It's just something that I've never really delved into. As far as this bike goes, though, so far I've been able to get everything okay, but I recently ran into this huge problem. I was taking the back wheel off. And when you take the back wheel off, of course, there's an axle that runs all the way through. And you take the nut off, and you push the axle out, and the wheel comes off. Sounds easy, right? The axle was froze in the wheel. I beat on it, and beat on it, and beat on it. This is the nut that was on the end of the axle shaft, and it's completely destroyed. There's no more threads in it. The threads are stripped out because it was down here on the side of the axle, and I pounded on it so much I ripped the threads right out of it. After hours, literally hours of labor, I was able to get the shaft out about maybe 5 inches, 6 inches, and then it wouldn't come anymore. I had a long bolt that I was using as a driver, to pound it, to knock it out with, but it was stuck. It wouldn't come out. So I had to give up that day, and I was, when something goes on like that, it bugs you. It just eats you up, and you're thinking, how am I going to get that out of there? And I looked into pullers, and I really couldn't find a puller that could pull on the end of that axle to get it out, or anything that could fit on the back of this bike that could push it out. So I was at a real quandary as to what to do. I got up the next day and I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I took my engine degreaser, my gunk, and the wheel was still on the bike with the axle sticking about 5 inches out the side here. And I sprayed the gunk inside the wheel there. And I guess I let it sit for an hour or so. And then I came back and I took my sledgehammer and I drove the axle back all the way into where the threads came out again. And sure enough, as I suspected, the threads on the axle itself had mushroomed out, and it was binding up inside the wheel, and that's why it wouldn't move anymore. So I took my grinder, put my grinder wheel on there, and I took the axle and I ground the burr off of there, or the mushroom. Sprayed it down with WD-40. You gotta have that's almost empty. I'm gonna have to replace it. I might have to, since it's a rainy day, I might head up to Home Depot and pick some of that up. After I did that, I was able to tap it all the way out, and it finally came out. But now, and you probably can't see it from here, but it's actually the shaft, the axle is actually bent a little bit from me whacking on it. So this axle is no good anymore. It's completely destroyed. Of course, there's no threads on there anymore either. And the threads are actually bent and twisted. So, went on eBay and I found a used one. And it was, there was an auction going on it, so I made a bid on it for $20, and I won the auction. So I got a used axle for it with the nut, and it actually comes with these spacers. So these things that were on there on mine are pretty rusty. I could clean them all up, rethread them, and make them work, but we'll see. Here's the bushings that were in there. You know, they were just rusted, really bad shape. So I'll clean all that up. I took the wheel out and pressure washed it. I might do it again though. There's still some junk on it that I can clean up, that aluminum in there. It's real hard to get in there with steel wool or anything, so it's better to pressure wash it. I don't know what I'm going to do with the spokes. I might end up just painting the spokes. I'll take some steel wool to them. I don't want to go through all the issue of replacing all. I can buy spokes, but that's a big job. And then if you don't get them in there right, if you don't have there's like a jig that you put your wheel in, and you can, by tightening or loosening the spokes, you can align your wheel. And if you don't have that right, you can warp your rim or something. So I don't want to deal with that. It's not going to be like a 100% total restoration project, let's put it that way. It'll look nice, it'll be in decent shape, and it'll run. That's my goal. So, I mean, if I was going to do a total restoration, I would pull the motor out of there, completely strip the frame down, and have it sandblasted and repainted the frame. I'd replace almost all the rubber bushings and gaskets and things on there. I'd probably have to etch the motor to get that aluminum clean again, because I've wire brushed it, but it's kind of like got a tarnish on it that won't come out. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Oh, the piece that the little piece, the spacer that goes back behind this tachometer gear that was missing. My son was able to make one with his 3D printer, and he brought it over, and it just wouldn't, it would barely fit on there, and it was so tight that it wouldn't work. So he said, don't worry about it, I'm going to go back and make another one so it'll slide on there like it's supposed to. So he went and took that back, and he's going to make it, if he hasn't already made one for me, and I'll pick that up this week. And then that side will be ready to put back together. I think I can put that case back together, and that side will be done. And I can keep working on everything else. I cleaned up this one shock absorber with my wire brush wheel, and I haven't done this one yet. You can see how rusty it is. So it took most of the rust off of that, but I think I can still clean it up a little better. I'm going to take the swing arm off of there and paint it and make it look nice. So there's still plenty of work to do. I did get new inner tubes for the tires and the spoke protector rubber strips that go inside the rim. So I still have to break the tires down off of the rim and put the new rubber in there, the new inner tubes, put the wheels back together. I haven't even started on the front wheel yet. So I got, hopefully that axle comes out of there and I don't have to beat the living daylights out of it either. But it's been a fun project. So as you can see, it's moving along step by step, slowly. I've got the carburetor all set up, and I've got a new cable for it. You know, I've searched pretty extensively for parts, and I'm pretty familiar now with all the websites, the eBay sites, anything that sells parts for these vintage motorcycles. And some of these parts are no longer available. Now, I did think that I could find a brand new axle on one of the websites, but I wasn't 100% sure that it would fit this bike. And they wanted over $200 for it, for a brand new one. So I think I made out pretty good on that auction, paying only 20 bucks for it. Yeah, it's raining. So until the rain stops, I'll be piddling around in here. Well, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging with me. If you like my video, hit me with the thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. We'd love to have you along for this ride. Until next time, ride hard and die free.